So I get a really common question since I'm a speech language pathologist. People ask me, how do I help my child with a receptive expressive language disorder?
I think you know some things about
So
that.
we're going to take that one on. You know, Paul, one of the first things to understand is the difference between receptive and expressive language.
Because they're different things,
Right. So receptive is the way that you're understanding, the way you're comprehending, the way you're breaking down what's being said, but not only what's being said, but even what's being shown in body language. And that starts at birth.
Receptive.
Okay?
I like to think of that. You're receiving.
Right.
So that's the language that's coming into me,
Right.
whether it's spoken or non-verbal.
Right. So that's receptive language. Expressive language is how you communicate outwards to people. Usually it's done verbally, but there's also a lot of expressive language that we do with our eyes, our gestures, a lot of different things. So we've got receptive, how we're understanding,
How we
and
receive it.
expressive, how we're
How we
sending
express
out.
it.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
remember, a disorder means that the development is not following normal patterns. So
Right.
we're talking about kids who are diagnosed with a receptive or an expressive language disorder. Okay, so things aren't going quite right. One of the most important things, I think, obviously, if your child has been diagnosed, that means that you've probably got a speech language pathologist on your team already, and you're working with them doing some therapy. So the thing I want to say, first of all, is you as the parent are the best therapist your child could have in conjunction with that speech therapist.
I learned this early in child psychology.
Yeah.
I had to work with parents because the parents are the ones that are spending all the time with the child.
Right.
And in 15 minutes or a half hour in my office, I can't do nearly as much as they can from day to day.
Right. And remember, a child has an attention span of about 1 minute per age, up to about 5 years old. So, you know, if you're working with a 2-year-old, they're only going to really pay attention for 2 minutes. Now, that doesn't mean you can't work with them longer, but you have to change the activity. There has to be some sort of a change in the energy, the activity every 2 minutes if you're working with a 2-year-old. And so that's where the parent comes in. You're with them all day long. You're a constant in their world, and you're a part of their everyday routine. And so that is really powerful. That gives you a chance to take the techniques as you're watching the therapy with your therapist, take those techniques and kind of integrate those into your daily routines.
So you're really paying attention so that you can then mimic what's being done to help your child in that therapy session.
Yeah.
Vicki, you've been doing speech and language therapy for a couple of decades.
Right.
And it comes very naturally to you. But as parents, what are some of the things that we can do that might mimic that speech therapy so that we can help our kids?
So some of the things you can do are, it's called expanding. So whatever your child says, maybe you're playing, you've got some toys and there's keys and they just say key. You expand that. You say, yeah, key. Key goes to a car. It opens it or turns it on, vroom, vroom, and you expand it. So you take where they're at and you're going to expand it. Or if they say bubble, you know, you've just blown bubble and they label it bubble, you might say big bubble, whoo, going high, and you're just going to expand it.
Okay.
So we use expansion a lot in speech therapy with young children.
It occurred to me, Vicki, as you were sharing that language is much more than the words.
Right.
It's how those words are stitched together to form messages and all of the expressions that go with it.
Right.
Now, do we use this kind of a technique for both receptive and expressive language disorders?
Yes, the expansion is more with expressive. You're trying to get more words.
To get them to express it better.
For receptive, you're going to label things a lot more. You're going to talk about what you're doing. This is so huge. You want to talk about what you're doing in the activity, but you're also going to talk about what your child is doing. So you're going to follow child-directed activities. And so if your child is playing with a car, and you might say, car, you're making the blue car go fast, broom. And so you're kind of talking it through the activity.
Like a commentary
Your
almost.
commentary. And did you notice that I added in big blue car? You know, you're going to add just another little something because you're trying to help them exposed to more vocabulary. That's part of that receptive language. You're also modeling expressive language because you're talking about what they're doing in their child-directed activity.
Okay. Vicki, as you're sharing these examples, I'm noticing a little difference in the pattern of speech that you use, the kind of words that you use. It's not baby talk.
No, we actually call it Motherese.
Oh,
That's the word for it. So
yeah.
you're talking, you usually slow down. You're going to use more variation in your prosody and your voice going up or down.
Emphasize things.
So you're going to slow down, and then you might make your sentences shorter. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to do baby talk like, wanna go park, or something like that, right?
Okay, so like mispronouncing it or...
Right. You're not going to, or leave out really important words. You're not going to do that.
You're speaking correctly, but you're slowing it down, slowing down the pace, adding some inflection and emphasis and some variety in how your voice sounds.
And you can use that emphasis too if there's a new word you're trying to teach them. Maybe the word is banana. It's their favorite food in the whole world. And so that's the other thing about being a therapist. You know what makes your child tick, right?
Yeah.
You know the things that they're most excited for. So you might say, you're eating a banana. Yum. But the banana gets more than the rest, the eating, because we want to get those first words in there, right?
So the simplified speech, but not turning it into baby talk. That's a real key.
And remember, you're always going to want to model for them the correct speech, because part of expression is the way that we say it. Now realize that little children, there's a natural progression of their speech. So they say things in what we call baby talk, and that's appropriate. But you have grown out of that. Hopefully.
You're not a baby.
So go ahead and use your adult speech with them because you're modeling what you want them to get to. One more thing that I would recommend that you do is to ask fewer questions and comment a little bit more. So you're going to comment about what you're doing, comment about what they're doing, but instead of say, Billy, what are you doing? Billy, what's this? Billy, what is this? Billy, what color is this? Those questions are actually really stressful.
It makes me anxious just to hear that
but you take a child with a delay, and those bombardment of questions is really overwhelming.
It's overwhelming to them.
And the other thing, too, is our pace. You really have to slow down your pace because usually when you have a disorder, your processing time with language is a little bit slower. So if you do ask a question like, where's mommy? And you wait. I know it seems so crazy, but it feels awkward to us, but we need to pause and give them a chance to form. There's so much happening by the time we speak, so give them a chance to form what they're going to say to you. Or not, then you can provide them the answer. That's the other thing is if you hit them 2 times, 3 times, my general rule with a preschooler, I'll ask them, or I might try to elicit something 2 times, possibly 3, and then I give them the answer and I go on to something else.
Okay. And you mentioned commentary. We covered that briefly earlier.
Right. We're just going to talk about what we do.
Bombarding them with the questions, just add some commentary to what's going on so that they can hear that encoded in the language and they'll connect that to what they're experiencing. So that helps them to develop that skill.
That brings me to another technique, which is called communication temptations. Which sounds so strange, but you kind of are encouraging them. You're tempting them to communicate. So you might have a routine that you always do. Okay, they put on their socks and then they put on their shoes. And so you might violate that routine. So you go up to them instead and you put their shoe on first. And you kind of wait a minute.
Didn't expect that.
And you kind of like just wait and see if they kind of say, no, not that, Mom. You're trying to get them to comment about it. Another thing might be to start a routine. Maybe you start by, you have a little toy and you wind it up and it goes, and you hand it to them. And they can't do it yet, and so you're trying to elicit them to ask you for help. The other thing is you really want to watch for their nonverbal communication. If they just walk away, they're not communicating with you. But if they look at you and go, they're actually asking. That's a communication. Say, you want help? Help, please. And then you do it. And you model what they could have said. And so these are kind of communication temptations. And so there's a whole bunch of those. Your therapist can kind of give you an idea, but you're going to use those communication temptations throughout the day.
And that still ties the language and the spoken word to what they're already trying to do.
Right, it's right in their life. So they ask for juice. You go and you get it out of the fridge, and you look at it and you put it back in. Maybe you didn't give it to them. So they have to ask again. Maybe they didn't ask, but you knew that's what they wanted. So you're trying to elicit any speaking or
This comes naturally for me, Vicki, because I love to tease kids.
Well, yeah.
But that's kind of what you're talking about. It's a little teaser.
Bit. It's a temptation to get that.
To draw that out of them.
Yeah. And probably my last point is just read. Even 15 minutes with your child. Read with your child, starting at birth. Go ahead and read with them. This increases their vocabulary. It increases something we call joint attention so that they learn how to look at the same thing. That's a big skill that's needed in communication. It also provides a special time that they can think back on. It's a wonderful activity to do with your child. So start reading just 15 minutes a day.
Make it part of your culture, part of your routine. Thank you, Vicki. She is the expert when it comes to language development, and hopefully you got something really helpful out of this. Would you please consider sharing? And if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, do that right now before the video ends. Also, Vicki and I have put together some resources for conscious, positive parents like you. It's called the Parenting Power Up. You're going to get some great resources to help you feel more confident as a parent. ParentingPowerup.com.